Chapter 9: Secrets and Lies. The sea serpent cut through the ocean's vast expanse with a steady, rhythmic motion, its black sails billowing softly in the chill of a moonless night. The ship's dark silhouette was barely discernible against the endless, inky blackness of the water. On deck, Mara and Cale stood close together, their faces illuminated only by the faint glow of lanterns swaying with the ship's movement. The weight of their joint mission pressed heavily upon them. Mara's sharp eyes flickered over the intelligence reports spread out before them, her brow furrowed in concentration. Each document and map seemed to weave a more intricate pattern of deceit, linking their two worlds in an unsettling web of conspiracies. Her hands, usually so steady on the ship's wheel, trembled slightly as she traced the lines of the latest report, her mind racing to piece together the puzzle. Beside her, Cale's azure scales glinted faintly in the dim light, reflecting the gravity of the situation. His expression was one of grim determination, the usual calmness in his eyes replaced by a focused intensity. The prince was absorbed in the reports, his sharp mind trying to untangle the threads of the complex scheme they were up against. The silence between them was heavy, filled with the unspoken acknowledgement of the danger they faced. The air on deck was thick with anticipation and unease. The gentle lapping of the waves against the hull seemed to be a mere backdrop to the tension that crackled between Mara and Cale. Every new piece of intelligence added another layer of complexity to their mission, revealing connections and alliances that neither of them had anticipated. The realization that their realms were entwined in such a dangerous conspiracy weighed heavily on both of them. Mara's eyes darted between the various documents, her mind working feverishly to understand the full scope of the plot. She glanced occasionally at Cale, noting the determination etched on his face. The prince's calm demeanor was a steadying influence, and Mara found a measure of reassurance in his presence. They were united in their resolve, though the task ahead seemed daunting. As the sea serpent continued its course through the dark waters, Mara and Cale remained locked in their intense scrutiny of the intelligence reports. The ship's steady motion contrasted sharply with the turbulence of their thoughts. Each revelation brought them closer to understanding the full extent of the threat they faced, but it also deepened the uncertainty of their mission. The tangled web of deception was a formidable adversary, and both leaders knew that their next steps would be crucial in uncovering the truth. The night had stretched long and tense aboard the Sea Serpent, filled with fevered discussion and frantic investigation. The black sails fluttered softly in the pre-dawn chill, and the ship cut through the still waters with a steady, rhythmic motion. As the first light of dawn began to pierce the darkness, the results of their relentless work started to take shape. The initial leads had hinted at a dangerous plot nearing fruition, but the more they uncovered, the more intricate and far-reaching the conspiracy seemed to be. Mara, her face illuminated by the soft glow of a lantern, studied the scattered reports with a furrowed brow. Her eyes, usually sharp and steady, were narrowed in deep concentration as she tried to piece together the fragmented pieces of the puzzle. The evidence they had gathered revealed not just a single rogue faction but a network of high-level conspirators whose reach extended into both their worlds. Beside her, Cale hovered over a detailed map, his azure scales catching the faint morning light as he traced connections with a delicate web of threads. His expression was one of intense focus, the calm demeanor he usually projected giving way to a visible strain. The complexity of the conspiracy was unfolding before him, each new detail adding to the gravity of the situation. The prince's sharp eyes met Mara's, conveying his own growing concern. "It's becoming clear that this isn't just a rogue faction or isolated plot," Mara said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion that laced her tone. "The conspiracy is rooted much deeper." She looked up from the documents, her gaze meeting Cale's with a mixture of frustration and resolve. The implications of their findings were heavy, suggesting a network of betrayal and deceit that spanned both their realms. Kale nodded slowly, his thoughts racing as he absorbed the magnitude of Mara's words. Indeed, he replied, his voice carrying a note of grim determination. This is more than we initially thought. We're dealing with a coordinated effort that threatens both Atlantia and Eldoria. His fingers traced a path on the map, indicating the far-reaching connections that tied the conspiracy together. The weight of their discovery pressed heavily upon him, fueling his resolve to act decisively. The dawn light continued to creep over the horizon, casting a golden hue over the ship's deck and highlighting the tired faces of Mara and Kale. The night's intense labor had brought them to the brink of understanding, but the full scope of the threat was still unfolding. The complexity of the conspiracy meant that their task was far from over, and the urgency to prevent the impending disaster grew more pressing with each passing moment. Mara straightened, her gaze fixed on Kale as she absorbed the magnitude of their situation. "We need to move quickly," she said, her voice resolute. "If the conspiracy is as deep-rooted as it appears, we're running out of time to stop it. We must identify all the key players involved and dismantle their plans before they can execute their plot." Her determination was palpable, a reflection of the shared commitment that had grown between them despite the rocky start. Kale met her gaze with a nod of agreement, his own resolve hardened by the gravity of their findings. "Agreed. We need to act swiftly and strategically. Let's compile everything we've learned and map out our next steps. The safety of both our kingdoms depends on our ability to uncover the full extent of this conspiracy and neutralize it before it's too late." As the first light of dawn painted the ocean in hues of gold and pink, the two leaders prepared to confront the daunting challenge ahead, their alliance now solidified by their shared purpose. Kale, his azure scales reflecting the dim light of the lanterns, took a deep breath, the weight of their findings pressing heavily upon him. The soft glow of the lamps cast a subdued, flickering light across his face, highlighting the tension etched into his features. His expression was one of deep contemplation as he absorbed the full scope of their discovery. The maps and documents scattered around them seemed to pulse with the gravity of the situation, each piece of evidence further entangling the conspiracy between their realms. "The involvement of high-level conspirators from both our worlds complicates matters significantly," Kale said, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable edge of concern. His words hung in the air, resonating with the weight of their implications. The realization that the threat extended beyond a singular, isolated plot to a coordinated effort involving key figures from both Eldoria and Atlantia was unsettling. His sharp gaze met Mara's, reflecting his own anxiety about the depth of their adversary's reach. Mara listened intently, her own thoughts mirroring the unease in Kale's voice. The flickering lanterns created a play of shadows on her face, accentuating the determination that had hardened in her eyes. "We're not just dealing with a threat to our own thrones," she replied, her tone steady despite the gravity of their situation. "This is a concerted effort to undermine both our kingdoms from within. We need to approach this with the utmost caution." Kale nodded, his expression resolute despite the concern evident in his eyes. The light reflecting off his scales seemed to intensify as he continued. "Indeed. Our adversaries have proven their capability to orchestrate a plot of this scale. It's clear now that our mission is far more intricate than we initially thought." He paused, his gaze drifting to the maps strewn across the table, as if seeking answers within their convoluted patterns. The atmosphere between them was thick with the weight of their realization. The lantern's soft glow did little to chase away the shadows of the conspiracy that had begun to cast its dark pall over their mission. "We need to adapt our strategy," Mara said, her voice firm. "We must identify and neutralize the key players involved before their plans come to fruition. Our next steps must be calculated and precise." Kale's eyes met hers with a renewed determination, the unease giving way to a steely resolve. Agreed. We must be vigilant and thorough. This conspiracy threatens not only our thrones but the very stability of our realms. Let's gather our findings, reassess our approach, and prepare to confront this threat head-on. The fate of both our worlds depends on our ability to overcome this challenge. Mara turned her gaze toward the horizon, where the dark water seemed to stretch endlessly, mirroring the depths of her thoughts. The moon's reflection danced across the waves, casting a silvery sheen that did little to lighten the somber mood. Her eyes, fixed on the far-off line where the sea met the sky, conveyed the gravity of their situation. The enormity of the conspiracy they faced was as vast and foreboding as the ocean before her. The fact that they've managed to keep this plot hidden from us speaks to their power and influence, Mara said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. The words echoed softly in the quiet night, carried by the faint sound of the ship's gentle rocking. Her expression was one of intense focus, the flickering lantern light casting shadows that accentuated her determined gaze. We need to identify these conspirators quickly and uncover their ultimate objective, Mara continued, turning back to face Kale. Her resolve was palpable, her stance reflecting her readiness to confront the danger head-on. The lanterns cast a warm glow on her face, contrasting sharply with the cold realization of their predicament. If we don't, we risk not only our own lives but the stability of both our realms. Kale's expression mirrored her concern, his azure scales catching the dim light in a way that highlighted his steely resolve. You're right, he said, his voice calm but filled with a sense of shared determination. Our immediate priority must be to piece together the clues and reveal the full extent of the conspiracy. Only by understanding their motives and disrupting their plans can we hope to secure our kingdom's futures. Kale's mind raced through the implications of their findings, his sharp eyes reflecting the gravity of their situation. The dim lantern light cast shadows across his face, accentuating the deep furrows of concentration. The weight of the prophecy and the complexity of the conspiracy were evident in his stern expression. The enormity of the threat they faced required more than just vigilance, it demanded a meticulous and strategic approach. We must proceed with extreme caution, Kale said, his voice steady but laden with urgency. His gaze swept over the scattered maps and intelligence reports spread across the table, each document a fragment of a larger, more intricate puzzle. The soft glow of the lanterns flickered in his eyes, highlighting the resolve etched into his features. The prophecy warned of deception and danger lurking in every corner. Trusting the wrong allies or missing a crucial detail could spell disaster. He paused, the weight of his words hanging in the air. The quiet hum of the ship and the gentle swaying beneath them seemed to amplify the intensity of the moment. Kale's voice carried the gravity of their situation, a reminder of the stakes involved. We'll need to coordinate our efforts carefully, using the resources of both our teams to unravel this conspiracy, he continued, his tone resolute. Every move must be calculated and deliberate. Mara nodded in agreement, her eyes reflecting the same determination. She understood the urgency and the necessity of their cautious approach. Agreed, she replied, her voice firm. Our success hinges on our ability to work together and to remain vigilant against the deception that surrounds us. We can't afford any missteps. Kale's gaze met hers with unwavering resolve. Let's review our findings and consolidate our strategies, he suggested, his voice resolute. We need to ensure that our next steps are informed by every piece of intelligence we have. Our combined strength and careful planning will be our greatest assets in overcoming this threat. The two leaders exchanged a look of mutual resolve, their eyes locking with an intensity that transcended their past conflicts. For a moment, the shadows of their previous tensions seemed to dissolve in the light of their shared purpose. The gravity of the situation had shifted their focus, pushing aside any lingering animosity. They were now united by a pressing need that demanded their full attention. Standing side by side, Mara and Kale could feel the weight of their alliance settling heavily upon their shoulders. The stakes had never been higher, and the enormity of the conspiracy demanded that their uneasy partnership evolve into something far more robust and cohesive. Each leader recognized that their combined strength was essential to navigating the complex web of deception threatening both their realms. The soft light of the lanterns flickered around them, casting an ethereal glow on their faces and highlighting the determination etched in their expressions. Their previous disagreements and rivalries seemed trivial compared to the looming threat that they now faced together. The lines of their faces, etched with the marks of past battles and struggles, reflected a new resolve to protect their respective kingdoms. The hum of the ship and the distant sounds of the ocean blended into the backdrop of their intense discussion, reinforcing the gravity of their mission. Every decision, every piece of information, and every move would now be scrutinized with the utmost care. Both Mara and Kale understood that their alliance had to transform from a temporary solution into a formidable and enduring partnership. Mara's hand rested on the table where their plans and intelligence reports lay scattered. Her gaze shifted from Kale to the documents, her mind racing through potential strategies and scenarios. "We've faced challenges before," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "But this is different. We need to be at our best, to truly trust each other, and to act decisively." Kale's expression mirrored her resolve. The flicker of determination in his eyes was a testament to his commitment. "Agreed," he said, his voice carrying the weight of their shared responsibility. "Our success depends on how well we can integrate our strengths and overcome the obstacles before us. Let's move forward with clarity and unity." As the first light of dawn began to seep into the room, the two leaders prepared to embark on their joint mission. The new day brought with it the promise of action and the hope of resolving the conspiracy that threatened their worlds. With their alliance solidified, Mara and Kale set their sights on the daunting task ahead, ready to confront the challenges with a united front. As the first light of dawn began to creep across the sea, painting the horizon with soft hues of gold and pink, Mara and Kale emerged from their quarters with a renewed sense of purpose. The tranquil beauty of the morning belied the intensity of the task that lay ahead. The two leaders gathered their respective crews and allies on the deck of the Sea Serpent, their faces set with a mix of determination and resolve. The crew of the Sea Serpent, accustomed to the unpredictability of pirate life, was already busy preparing for the day's operations. Their movements were purposeful as they assembled equipment, reviewed maps, and readied themselves for the task of gathering intelligence. On the opposite side, Kale's elite guards and advisors worked with a focused efficiency, their underwater skills now adapted to the surface world's needs. The blend of their expertise promised a formidable alliance. Mara and Kale stood together at the center of the activity, their presence commanding the attention of their teams. As they began to formulate their plan, the weight of the conspiracy they were about to unravel was evident in their solemn expressions. Their strategy needed to address every angle of the threat, from identifying key players in the plot to setting up a network of surveillance that could track their movements. Mara outlined the initial steps of the investigation, her voice steady and authoritative. "We'll start by deploying our scouts to monitor known points of interest. We need to gather as much information as possible about the conspirators' activities and affiliations. Our goal is to build a comprehensive picture of their network and uncover their ultimate objective." Kale nodded in agreement, his azure scales catching the morning light as he spoke. "I'll coordinate with my guards to establish secure communication channels. We need to ensure that our intelligence is timely and reliable. Any misstep could expose us to further danger. Let's also consider potential safe houses or hideouts that the conspirators might use." The combined efforts of the two teams quickly took shape as they set up a series of strategic posts and monitoring stations. Maps were spread out, and detailed notes were exchanged as the planning intensified. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of urgency, each member of the alliance aware of the critical nature of their mission. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the ship's preparations continued with a rhythm that matched the rising tide of their resolve. Despite the weight of their mission, there was an underlying sense of camaraderie and mutual respect developing between Mara and Kale's teams. They knew that their combined efforts were the only chance they had to thwart the looming threat. By mid-morning, the Sea Serpent was ready to set sail once again, this time with a clear and coordinated plan. Mara and Kale stood side by side at the helm, their eyes scanning the horizon as the ship left its cove. The dawn's light illuminated their path, casting a hopeful glow on their joint mission as they ventured into the unknown, determined to protect their realms and uncover the truth behind the conspiracy. With their plan set into motion, Mara and Kale braced themselves for the challenges that lay ahead. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the deck of the Sea Serpent, a stark contrast to the heavy burden of political intrigue that awaited them. Each leader, now attuned to the gravity of their joint mission, prepared to delve deeper into a labyrinth of secrets and deception. Their unity, forged through necessity, would be tested as they ventured into uncharted territories of betrayal and hidden agendas. The complexity of the conspiracy they faced was becoming increasingly clear. The initial revelations were just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath them lay a vast network of plots and hidden motives. Mara's sharp mind and Kale's strategic prowess were both essential to navigating this treacherous terrain. As they reviewed their gathered intelligence, the scale of the plot became more daunting, underscoring the need for unwavering focus and meticulous planning. With a new sense of purpose, Mara and Kale directed their efforts towards the next phase of their investigation. They outlined their objectives with precision, knowing that any misstep could compromise their mission. The Sea Serpent set sail once more, its black sails unfurled against the backdrop of the ocean, a symbol of their relentless pursuit of the truth. The ship's movement mirrored their determination, cutting through the waters with purpose and resolve. As the ship charted its course through the vast and unpredictable ocean, the air was thick with anticipation. The crew, accustomed to Mara's leadership, worked with a renewed vigor, their actions synchronized with Kale's guard's more calculated approach. The blending of their strengths was a testament to their growing alliance, each member of the team aware of their crucial role in uncovering the conspiracy. The horizon stretched out before them, a vast expanse that held both promise and peril. Mara and Kale stood side by side at the helm, their eyes focused on the journey ahead. The challenges they would face were formidable, but their shared commitment to stopping the assassination plot provided a beacon of hope. They understood that the path ahead would be fraught with uncertainty, but their resolve remained unshaken. As they moved forward, the weight of their mission hung heavy, yet they were driven by a singular goal: to thwart the looming disaster and protect their realms. The secrets and lies they had uncovered were just the beginning of a complex and dangerous investigation. United in purpose, Mara and Kale prepared to confront the shadows of betrayal and deceit, determined to unveil the truth before it was too late.